Hello everyone, I'm Max Kelly, Watershed Educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County and the AWSMP, the Ashokan Watershed Stream Management Podcast. And I'm here with Tim Koch. Tim, would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Tim Koch. I'm currently the Stream Education Leader with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County and the Ashokan Watershed Stream Management Program.
And how long have you been here with the AWSMP, Tim?
Just a little over 7 years. I started January 4th, 2018.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your career journey here at AWSMP? What was your background like before you started here, and what kind of interested you in this position?
You know, I've always known I wanted to do something with water, going back for a ways, but, you know, well into undergraduate. So I got my undergraduate from the University of Albany in 2006. Didn't have a really big hydrology program or anything like that. There was one geohydrology, it's like groundwater, and it did not spark my interest. I sort of knew it was going to be surface water all the way. So I graduated in 2006 and then played in a band for 10 years and said, you know, if I'm not a famous musician by the time I'm 30, I will go back to grad school for surface water hydrology. And the month before my 30th birthday, I enrolled at SUNY ESF in their Watershed Hydrology program. Got my master's there, did a little stint in stormwater, did a little work with the state in their coastal management division, and then finally got here to the stream program in this kind of I made it moment, you know, where it was like, finally I'm working with the surface water that I always wanted to, not stormwater, not groundwater, not the coast, not oceans, but fresh surface water. So it was nice to get here, and kind of feel like I finally made it.
All right, let's go back there a second. So you were in a band for 10 years, and in that time, were you still interested in streams? Were you still looking at streams? Like you knew this was still something you were interested in, or were you like, I'm just gonna put all the stream stuff in a box and come back to it?
Good question. It was always there. You know, so I did in my 20s, did a lot of songwriting, and in hindsight, as I look back, the number of water references and things like that in these songs is very obvious. So that the streams were there.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about the path in your current position, how you got from where you started to stream education leader, and talk a little bit about, you know, how your title is educator and what that means specifically to you.
Yeah, never thought I'd have educator in my title, or never thought I'd want to have educator in my title. So it was an interesting journey, journey. Got hired here as a stream educator, and then over the years, you know, kind of got promoted up through the ranks of the CCE hierarchy, I guess, for lack of a better word. And a few years ago, got this stream education leader position where I started to have a little bit more say in the trajectory of the education and outreach program here, and able to function a little bit more independently and explore ideas. So that's been really neat. But yeah, this educator title, starting as an educator and then being an education leader, it was interesting. When I read the job description, I remember being like, this sounds really, really interesting. It sounds just like talking about streams, like all day, thinking about streams. So it sounded like a really neat position, even though it had this educator in the title. And then when I started, and when I really kind of understood what Cornell Cooperative Extension is all about, how difficult science communication can be, the whole thing kind of flipped on its head, and it became a lot more interesting. It almost became a creative project where, you know, almost like going back to the songwriting, where it's like, you know, here's this problem or something where it's like, here's this information and people need it. And they might not know that they need it, but they need it to know how streams work, so that we can then have a society that coexists with streams. So the information is there, but how do you make it interesting? How do you make it palatable? How do you make people want to know? And then not only like hear this information, but incorporate it, integrate it into their being, you know, into like how they exist on a daily basis in the world. So it became way, way less about education in that formal sense, classrooms sitting down with tests, facts, knowledge recall, and it became more about inspiration and a deeper sense of like getting people to feel differently about streams, and that all starts with education in one sense.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of that foray into the deeper connection of streams? Like, how have you incorporated that into the education program here?
By making it more about experiences, I think. As you know, a couple of years ago, we tried this conference for the public. It took the shape of the typical academic conference where you have experts come in and they give platform presentations with question and answer sessions, and then everybody goes home. We had a great slate of speakers, everything. I was really stoked about it, but not a lot of people came out. And after that, we kind of, we as a group sat down together, did a little sort of after action, what does this mean? Where do we go from here? Because I think we were all kind of bummed out a little that didn't go as well as we thought it would. And so we thought that, hey, if people want to learn facts, they can go to YouTube, they can go on the internet, there are infinite number of places to go and learn something. In today's society, we need to learn a little bit about like where these reputable sources of information are. But if people want to learn something, there's way more than they can handle out there. So like where we kind of came to this group conclusion that where we could maybe make an impact is by providing people with these experiences and a chance to be in nature, be near streams, and not only hear about them and have that be this abstract intellectual concept, but to be like, hey, I'm feeling the stream running past me. I can feel the stream power and equate that to the physics equations of stream power, which is, velocity times shear stress. So that's kind of what we decided. And really for the last year or maybe two, really we're kind of pushing into that. Like, let's make these experiences, expand the definition of what science education is a little bit, to get past that book learning thing, and have it be a more holistic education. But so that's kind of where we've been at the last year and a half at least, and even from outside places that do similar stuff to what we do, I'm noticing a lot more talk about feeling and emotion and that aspect of conservation and science education and communication.
Yeah, it seems like this summer that really culminated with our conference where we did 7 events.
7 or 8?
7 or 8 events, and they were streamside qigong, streamside yoga, streamside meditation, streamside fly fishing, paddle and portage.
Public talk, the medicinal plant walk.
Medicinal plant walk. So quite a few activities that really touched upon that.
And all of which were well attended.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to think about, the breadth of work you've done under the umbrella of education, and maybe you can provide me with some of the extremes on either end, like the more traditional where you're in front of a classroom and you have your pupils, and then the more abstract, like something like streamside meditation.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of it there. The extreme of the traditional education was these classroom lectures. I've given a couple guest lectures to high schools and colleges on water resources management or the New York City water supply or fluvial geomorphology. And it's PowerPoint and you talk and the people ask questions and everybody goes home. Done a lot of those, and I do kind of like those, especially, remembering college and being like, oh, a guest speaker, somebody other than my professor, like I'm gonna pay attention a little bit more. And I had really great experiences with all these kids, and so that's really nice. At one point I did think I wanted to be a teacher, like really early on in my career. I was gonna be an earth science teacher, so kind of brings me back to those feelings when I do that standard education. But yeah, on the extreme other side, it's these experiential education events that we've done, and we mentioned a couple of them. Stream snorkeling, that's really a big one where and especially just seeing the kids, it's sort of a youth tailored event, get more kids than adults for these streamside snorkeling programs. And they're not going to remember that the watershed's 255 square miles and that there's 450 miles of streams. All this information that we give them in the beginning, and we talk about fish and that there's 3 species of trout in these streams. And, I doubt that after the event, they're going to know that this watershed is 255 square miles and there's 3 species of trout and only one is native. Those are the facts. But what I really hope and think, based on what I've observed, is that they really learn how nature can make them feel, in a way. So they're going to walk away from that experience remembering what that trout looked like, or remembering how that water felt, or remembering how much fun they had with their friends in this stream. And I don't know, I'm just coming to realize that I think that is just as important as knowing that there's 3 species of trout, that they get stressed at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, all these facts, but the facts aren't what engage people necessarily. Some people perhaps, yes, absolutely. But it's more the feeling that engages people that then makes them want to learn more. And once you start learning more, then it's like exponential growth, where it's every answer creates more questions. And then that's how you become obsessed with something and really want to devote your life to it, devote your career to it, things like that. So I find the role of educator to be a really, really powerful one, which I never would have thought when I first started this job. It's amazing.
Are there any other standout events or trainings you kind of want to highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. So Stream Explorers, which is Matt, our youth educator, sort of his project that we've done 5 or 6 years now, a whole day of stream-based youth education and hands-on in the streams. You and I, we've done sediment sorting with these kids. We've done macroinvertebrate sampling with them. So Stream Explorers is definitely a highlight.
And really college level stuff.
Yeah.
It's not just sort a few rocks. It's quite serious, the level of effort.
These are 4th graders knowing about the intermediate access of a set piece of sediment and how to measure it and why you measure that intermediate access versus the A or C access. So yeah, absolutely, it's amazing to see how much they learn from these things, where we're not spouting facts at them, we're just doing science. So yeah, amazing. And another one was the medicinal plant walk that we did kind of mention. It was just a whole nother way to engage with the stream ecosystem. So we weren't in the stream picking aquatic plants, but we were right next to the stream talking about that riparian area, the uniqueness of it, the biodiversity, and then to see that biodiversity and the diversity of what those plants can provide for people was really, really huge. That was another highlight for sure.
Yeah, and we could probably tally up how many, presentations or events you've done for landowners and municipal officials, but we don't really have time for that. So it's kind of interesting to think about, you've imparted quite a bit of wisdom on the community, but reciprocally, what have you learned from the community or from the stream itself?
Yeah, this is a great question. One I've thought a lot about. The streams obviously taught me a lot. I think what is more interesting here is what the community has taught me. Like I said, I've wanted to do water for a really, really long time, and I'm really, really glad and grateful. I guess I'm a voice for the stream, an advocate for the stream. My wife calls me the Lorax for this. I speak for the streams. And I'm really happy that that's where I am. But what I've learned from the community is that how hard it is to manage streams. I come from a place where I am always thinking about the stream, what the stream wants, the natural stream processes, the central tendencies, all these words that we always use to talk about the natural stream process. And I understand that, and I know why the stream needs it. But that doesn't negate the fact that we've built communities near streams, that people live near streams, and that they are put in real and immediate danger physically, financially, emotionally, all these different ways. So really kind of what I've learned is how hard stream management is, especially at the local government level, where people have to make really hard decisions. They have to hear me talk about, this is what the stream wants, this is what the stream is going to do, regardless of what we as humans do. This is what the stream is going to do. Here's our best guess as to how climate change is going to impact that. Like, here you go. Now make a decision that impacts thousands of people. And not only impacts thousands of people, but impacts this stream, all the streams that stream flows into, as well as all the streams that flow into that first stream. Like it's all connected, and to have a community with real people be right in the middle of it just makes it so hard. And so I watch local government officials hear what we have to say, and you can almost just watch them in their mind being like, okay, understood. Now I'm moving on to the next part of this equation, which is well beyond me. It could be landowners or the municipal budget or, whatever, who knows. But the stream process is really only one small part of the stream management. And so I'm really glad that I'm there to be that voice for the stream, and I'm glad that the program is going to continue to be an advocate. And just, be glad that I did not become a politician.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You coordinate the Highway Managers Working Group. Our program is organized around these central working groups, and the Highway Managers is the one that you coordinate, and you hold these meetings and facilitate. And it's kind of interesting to think how these highway managers are some of the largest stream managers in the watershed.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I had no idea of before I started here. We call ourselves stream managers, right? But then many times I've referred to this group of local landowners and the public being the quote-unquote largest group of stream managers, the people that own streamside property, the people that manage streamside infrastructure like water lines and bridges and culverts. So yeah, and talk about education, every time we have one of those meetings, even if we're just going through the agenda 1, 2, 3, each of those spots is one of these learning moments where it's just, oh, hey, well, this thing happened, and it's a chance to talk about recurrence intervals of floods and what they actually mean. How the 100-year flood is not actually the storm that you're going to see once in 100 years, but the storm that has a 1% chance of occurring in every given year. And so, yeah, that's sort of the type of education that happens. But then, I really came to see how much highway managers really do impact streams. So really, really interesting, and the group of folks that we worked with at the Highway Managers Working Group are really excellent people that were making those hard decisions, but taking into account what I had to say about the stream. And they were really trying and doing everything they could to serve the stream and their community.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that we call ourselves stream managers, and people maybe think that we're going out every day and going to the local stream and telling it to increase its output, or you're not meeting your quota for quarter 2, etc. So what has been some of these key lessons learned and takeaways over the last 8 years you've been working here?
Yeah, big question. That's pretty hard to answer, but a lot of it, or to some extent, it's what I was getting at before. There's the science, and you can be a scientist and be the best scientist there ever was, have the most scientific mind, but that doesn't mean that anything's going to get done. And so, to some extent, I have learned that there's science, and then there's management, and we kind of think of all these different buckets, but it's more a gradient than it is, distinct buckets. So you have to have a good understanding of the science, but you also need to know how people work and how these agencies fit together to be able to get stuff done. You need to know where the money comes from, how the money gets tracked. So really just how much more complicated everything is than I thought it was, especially in college, where you're coming up and you're, I'm going to go into conservation and save the world. But everything is really nuanced, and it's very complicated. So I have learned a lot from really great scientists here. But just as much I have learned from really great administrators, really great managers of people, and really come to understood how all those pieces have to fit together for good science to create meaningful change.
Yeah, we're really, sad to see you go, Tim, but it sounds like you have exciting things on the horizon. So why don't you take a little bit of time to talk about your next position, how what you've done here will translate. It'll be interesting to hear about that.
Yeah, so I'm taking a new position with the New York State Water Resources Institute at Cornell University. So staying within the Cornell family, which is nice, but moving from the cooperative extension system into the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, which is where WRI is housed. And then I'll be a WRI employee working sort of embedded in the DEC main office in Albany. And my position, the working position title is Stream Restoration and Education Coordinator. So I'm going to be doing a lot of similar work, which is really exciting. I even get to continue working on some projects that we've started here that I'll sort of wrap up in my new position at WRI. So one of the big opportunities I see here is taking some of the things that we've done here over the last 7 years and exporting them to the rest of the state. So we've developed some really good technical trainings around how to read a river, what to do with streams after a big flood when everything's sort of chaotic and people are running around. Some of these public events that we've been talking about that are maybe less science or less traditional education and more experiential education, doing some more of that. And I'm happy to say that I'm going to help with Stream Explorers again this year. So, like I said, a lot of carryover. And I don't think this will be the last time that I interact with AWSMP. I certainly see opportunities for collaboration in the future. There's just so much experience and expertise in the West of Hudson watershed that I hope to find a way to let some of that trickle out into the state. And that's really one of the larger objectives that I'm going into this new position with. Like, we've done so much cool stuff here. How can we get everyone else in the state to benefit from it?
Yeah, that's great to hear. And how do you think the Ashokan Reservoir watershed in particular will play a role in your future? You're a big camping guy, hunting, etc. How do you see this watershed in your future?
Well, it certainly won't be the last time I'll be here. Like I said, I've really, I grew up in the Adirondacks. I was never like what I call Catskills kid. Like, we didn't come down here. When I was a kid, we went to the Adirondacks. So it wasn't until college that I ever went hiking down here. And then it wasn't, I keep saying down. You might be able to tell that I live up in the Albany area, so I come south every day to come to work. But man, I didn't know how pristine, well, not pristine, how nice some of these streams are, with the history of land ownership and conservation here. Some of these streams haven't been touched in 100 years, well over 100 years, which can't be said for a lot of places in the Adirondacks. So it's this weird thing that some places in the Catskills feel even more wild than wilderness areas in the Adirondacks. So I've really come to appreciate the Catskills way more than I ever have. They might not ever feel like my home mountains, which will probably always be the Adirondacks because that's where I grew up, but definitely in some adopted mountains. And with the amount of research that's going on here, especially around streams, stream management, I definitely see myself coming back for some of these research opportunities to get involved with them, and then also to continue to be involved with CERM, the Catskill Environmental Research and Monitoring Conference. It's coming up at the end of the year. So definitely not the end of my relationship with the Ashokan Reservoir watershed, and I look forward to that continued relationship.
Yeah, Thanks for that, Tim. We look forward to future collaborations with you, and thanks for the great chat and all the great work you've done here.
Thanks, Max.